overall, if we look at this on a sort of top-line ESG score level, Malaysian companies actually rank pretty well if you compare them against emerging market peers and regional peers. But a lot of that is because of the governance element, because companies here are very familiar with governance requirements. It's part of the listing rules. They know what's expected of them. And if you look at specific issues like board diversity, we see that Malaysia has actually really even outpaced its peers, even in more developed markets, by achieving things like 30% of women on boards in advance of other markets. So that's really important. But you've got to remember, this is a dynamic and developing space. There are new issues that come to the fore, and at the moment the focus is really on the environment and on climate. And I think you see the companies that are quite exposed to some of those areas, for example, biodiversity, have taken steps to make sure that they have improved their performance, they've got the right policies in place, but then there are others that haven't yet got on board with that, or maybe they're more exposed to one area, they're more familiar with the disclosure points, what people would expect to see in that space, but then now we're looking at another area, and it's really about kind of keeping pace with that. I think if we look at the scores, we'd have to say it's really a focus on climate, and even just basic things like disclosing Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. It's a real focus now from the regulators here in particular. Echoes everywhere, I would say, across Asia, but I think just really kind of bringing companies up to speed in terms of their disclosure, their policies, and how they're tackling climate change as an issue, but also as an opportunity for the business as well. So I think really the focus on climate is going to be an important one. So I think taking that kind of whole of market approach, really kind of using all of the tools in the toolbox is going to be very helpful. I'd also mention we've recently launched some ESG low carbon indexes. So these are new methodologies alongside FTSE for Good that are starting to bring in that very important element of understanding how companies are managing their emissions directly, and then weighting their exposure within that index, certainly for the large and the mid-cap companies, to help to demonstrate how they can improve their performance. And disclosing your carbon emissions is now a relatively basic requirement. So we'd really like to see companies do that. And yes, that's an area that we're going to be focusing on engaging with companies on as well.